I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is
On this
that
sad
is a
clown.
sad clown.
Proud of my address.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, probably mostly gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, listen to the cast. This week, I'm proud to present to you I think the only Site Q actually to hold a Super Bowl event at his AO. I think probably one of the, I'm gonna say top 3 funniest guys. And
Not top 2.
yeah, yeah. No, and I think just when I watched this guy lead, the combination of vulnerability and humor actually is what keeps me coming back. So Oompa, man, it's good to see you. Glad to have you on the cast today. And as we'd like to start off, give us a little glimpse into sort of who EH'd you and what was the first workout like, and then I've always been curious. I wasn't there when you were named, so the name Oompa, I'm curious how we landed on that.
Yeah. So, thanks for having me. I'm an occasional listener. I did the same thing with this podcast as I did with the Between Two Coupons. Is once someone asked me to be on it, I panicked and went and listened to a bunch of the things that I hadn't been listening to before. So I'm aware now more than I have been in the last week. But yeah, no. So my EH story is that my brother-in-law, who is Scuba, we are married to twins.
Oh,
And
nice.
so we do a lot of the same things together. But he got into F3 during the depths of the pandemic. So like summer of 21 he started, and he didn't really talk too much. Well, he did talk a lot about it actually, but because he knew I was a guy that used to work out all the time and had kind of fallen off, and that I loved it. Like it was a big part of my life, doing triathlons and doing just as much stuff as I could, biking, running, hiking, canoeing. But he was like, hey, you'd be perfect for this because you already love to do all this stuff. It's just you haven't done it for a while.
Yeah.
So he eventually talked me into it. The first place I posted was at the district, actually.
Okay.
And this was weird. It's like, I talk to guys all the time that are like, hey, I've been doing F3 for 6 months, but I haven't done the Murph yet. Like I don't, that seems too hard, And I always tell them, well, I did it my first time, and not that it wasn't hard. But Scoob left out the part about it being that hard. But what he said was, well, here I was afraid of the unknown, right? I was afraid of, like, I don't do boot camp stuff. What if they make me do 300 push-ups? And he's like, no, they'll make you do 100 push-ups and this, that, and run 2 miles, and it's all broken up. And I'm like, okay, 2 miles, I can probably not do that, but I can probably get close. And so I already knew what was going to happen. So that's kind of what hooked me in, was already knowing what was going to happen. So yeah, I went in the district, and Crawl was the cue that day, which I don't really know him at all. I've actually never seen him at a workout. Besides, I think like 2 weeks ago, he buzzed through when a COT was happening. I just remember what he looked like, and he just ran right through us with his dog, like at the Paradise.
Huh.
He's still out there.
He is out there. Yeah.
But anyway, I got the name Oompa from I was extremely tired, delirious, but the only thing I could think of is that in a past life I was a music teacher. I taught choir at Underwood, Iowa for a couple years, but the only instrument that I kept playing was I still play the tuba. And so that was immediately, people seized on that. They're like, all right, that's it. We got to make something with that. Just stop.
Yeah. Nice.
So that's what it ended up. But yeah, so I don't really play the tuba much anymore. I do it, I guess, at Christmas sometimes, but
Yeah.
I do. My father passed away in 2016, and since then I've had his tuba. So I actually own a tuba, which makes playing the tuba easier.
Yeah.
But my wife and I'm in my basement here, and my wife's like, where can we put this?
Yeah. Where can we put the tuba?
It just sits out in the middle because there's nothing. I mean, where do you store a freaking giant tuba?
Yeah. I don't, so I apologize, but I don't get what is Oompa? Is Oompa like the
That,
sound that
that is the sound a tuba makes. Yes, indeed.
okay.
I
Okay.
mean, it's agreed upon. It's the sound.
Okay. Okay.
Raspberry just sent me a very romantic uh passage from a book he's reading about someone who is, gosh, he told me what it was. But anyway, she is having some sort of hallucination or flashback, and it's all about the sound. It includes the sounds of tubas. So
Okay.
it said in the book, it said Oompa. And he's like,
Oompa.
hey, look at this. I'm like, yeah, there it is.
So then really the pronunciation is Oompa. We
Right,
should really be, yeah.
right. It
Okay.
doesn't have anything to do with Oompa Loompas. That's completely different.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's where a lot of guys go, right? And they're like, huh, maybe he used to own a chocolate factory or
Right.
totally different. Okay. I love that. That's actually one of our more clever names, it sounds. Yeah, tell me this. So you and Scuba are married to twins,
Correct.
identical twins? I mean, is there like you ever get confused there or what?
They are identical. My eyes have been opened, having married a twin, to the common misconceptions around twins. Do you think the same thing? Do you have your own language? It's just like anything else. They hate those questions, you
Okay.
know. So no, we don't get them mixed up. But yeah, I think we both met our wives around the same time. I guess I met Allison before he met Alicia. So I was there. I was there the night that he met Alicia, uh,
Okay.
at the Huber House, or at Oktoberfest. But anyway, yeah. So I knew my wife's sister. They have a younger sister, and I knew her in college for 4 years, and we were good friends. And then one time she mentioned, she's like, "Oh, I have 4 year older sisters who are more your age who are twins." I'm like, "What? You never mentioned this before."
Yeah.
Then we went on the taco ride in Council Bluffs, and then
That's that.
rest is history.
Awesome. And remind me again, how long you guys been married? How many kids do you have?
So we have been married now, going on 14 years, so 2019 or 2009. We have two kids who are 9 and 7.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they go to Prairie Lane here in West Side, and I'm ashamed to say that the Prairie Lane neighborhood has all these dudes that I've been trying to get out to F3, and I don't think there's a single one that lives in Prairie Lane.
Yeah.
Candidates I know.
At one point we were looking at a site at Prairie Lane Elementary School, but then it was under construction, or I don't know. But okay, so tell me this, so you've been married 14 years, you got two kids, and you mentioned prior to F3 you were doing like triathlons, and before, was it the pandemic that sort of made you slow down on some of the fitness stuff, or what, or was it just other things going
It was other stuff. I mean, so my wife started staying home. She stayed home with our kids, starting in 2014.
on? Okay.
At that exact same time, I got a sort of a higher level job. I got a management job, which I've never had before. And so it was kind of like the combination of like all of a sudden having a kid, all of a sudden having this job which had more responsibility than kind of a production type job.
No.
And those things kind of resulted in me, I used to go to the gym at work all the time, like every single day, no exceptions. But then I just kind of stopped doing that. And then, once you do that, it's kind of like people's excuses for not doing F3. You're like, well, do you want to do the triathlon this year? Like, oh man, I can't, I'm not in shape enough to do that,
No.
So yeah, they're just kind of there. And then I got another more important job and slowed down even farther. So yeah, I was always looking to get back into doing something, and I kind of had fits and starts of doing kind of what I had before, which I did a lot of running on my own and biking on my own. But with kids, it was
Yeah.
difficult to be like, hey, I'm going to spend all of Saturday morning biking like I used to before we had kids.
Yeah. That doesn't fly at my house anyway. So
Right.
it's really once you became the director of Tuba Productions,
Mhm, mhm.
yeah, then it's really interesting, because I do think I don't know. I can see some of myself in that, right? As I got, different jobs with more responsibility, I found myself going into work earlier to, I don't know, prove myself or whatever. But do you feel like from a fitness perspective, are you back to sort of where you once were, or how is that journey?
I am not. I mean, I was probably still like, I don't know, 60 pounds lighter than I am now. So
Okay.
I was way down there. But I had this kind of weird journey. So in high school, I was a bigger kid, sure. So Skids is my high school buddy. We grew
Okay.
up all the way together, so he could tell you. We were both kind of like, bigger kids who were, oh, you're going to be the lineman on the team, you're going to be the thrower on the track team. So I did that, and then I kind of stopped doing sports around my freshman year. Well, no, I still did track, but I stopped doing football, was kind of my main other sport around after freshman year, and kind of got into music and drama and all these other things, which is not physically active.
Yeah.
Uh, but then all my friends were cross country runners at the time in high school, and so I think my junior year I was overweight, not very healthy, and it was just like, you know what, I'm going to start running. I'm going to run a mile. Like my friends always run 5 miles a day. I'm going to try to run 1 mile. So I started doing that probably the summer before my junior year, and I lost like, I don't know, 30 pounds or something like that.
Oh,
Came back for, just looking like $1 million my junior year. And then all
yeah.
the football coaches were like, what the hell? Why did you quit? Uh, but so I started that kind of self workout routine in high school. Then in college, I took it to a new level. Like it was like I lived at the Hyper building at UNO. I did a lot of like saunas and, like hot sauna, cold shower rounds and stuff, and lots of racquetball. Just like that's what I did for recreation in college. I had a
Yeah.
group of friends that did it with me. So yeah, so I was very active in that, and then I did a lot of like high adventure canoeing and stuff like that in the summers. I would go to the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota and guide church canoe trips for kids, and so it was a lot of that that was my lifestyle. And then I
Yeah.
got married and got a desk. When I had my teaching job for 2 years, I was more active. Like it was like,
Sure.
you're up, you're at least walking around. It was stressful, but you're doing stuff. And then I got a desk job, which I was like, whew, this is much easier than teaching, but it's also way less active. And
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that, that's when the rest of the story I already told picked up, where it was like, my wife was like, well, you got to, stand up from your desk and get more exercise. And at that time, I was the authority on exercise in our marriage. She
Sure.
hadn't really formally exercised or really stuck with it. I'd been doing it for like 15, 20 years at that point.
Yeah.
But like I said, slowly it kind of tapered off. And, I never sought help from anybody else because I was such a solo guy,
Yeah.
like most guys are, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I like to run by myself. I don't like to talk when I run, which you wouldn't think it now probably,
Yeah.
but I don't like to have someone on the run with me because I feel like I'm either too fast for them or too slow for them, and
Yeah.
but it was yeah, when Josh or Scoob first talked to me about F3, that was my main hesitation was I don't like working out with other people. I don't like classes. I kind of like lifting with other people, but that was about it, you
Yeah.
know. And so I'm like, I don't know, this is probably going to be a non-starter.
Yeah.
But it turns out it wasn't.
Yeah. And you feel like so you're not maybe where you were in 2015 or whatever, but you're headed that way, you feel like, and you've
Oh
got,
yeah,
yeah. Okay.
that someone just asked me the other day, Canadian Bacon, I think, was like, hey, what's been your journey so far? And I'm definitely about 20, 25 pounds down from when I started F3. And
Nice.
obviously I'm in better shape. I went out
Yeah.
and pre-ran this morning and then did Spike, and I met one of my high school friends for breakfast right afterwards. And he's like, oh, what did you do? He kind of treats me like I mean, he has a very good workout routine himself, but he's not, he's come out to F3 a couple times, like three, 4 times. But he's like, oh, what crazy stuff did you do today? I'm like, oh, I ran, a couple miles and then we did this and that. And he was just like, man, that's still really impressive. Like
Yeah.
it's true, to be where I am now versus before, in the middle of the pandemic, it's a huge change.
Yeah. And do you feel like you've had, I mean, I think I'm assuming the answer is yes, but you feel like you've got access to all the, different variety of exercise,
Oh yeah.
options. And have you done queen service at all? Has that been part of your journey?
I've done it a couple times. I famously either like I flunk out of clean service or I get frustrated and like I hit a plateau and then I just stop, posting. So I've
Yeah.
never actually like finished a queen service. And
Okay.
I did the last one and I let's see, I lost like I don't know 6 7 pounds. That was good. And then I kind of plateaued there and I missed a few weeks reporting. And then I actually ended up I weighed myself generally every week, but I ended up lower than that. I think I was like 9 or 10 pounds down, but like I didn't want to make up all the weigh-ins on the in between and then post them on the last day, like, hey guys, look at me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, so have I ever actually completed a clean service? No.
Yeah.
But it is helpful and it's one of those things that I really, you know, Vandalay said in a COT a long time ago that he had someone whose wife came up to him and said, "Hey, can my husband join your group? It seems like you got a good thing going." And his COT was all about like, "Hey, we're here to be ready. Like when you're ready for us, we're always ready for you."
Hmm.
That's one of the things that I value the most about F3 and like Queen Service is a part of that. I mean, anything, you
Yeah.
can't run, hey, we've got a rucking group that's always ready for you to join, or a Clydesdale group that's always ready for you to join, or you know,
Yeah.
weightlifting, or whatever you need, really.
Yeah. So what was your second, do you remember your second post after the Murph then?
I do. It was Animal House's VQ at Sanitarium, um,
Okay.
which was memorable because it was in a gigantic thunderstorm. It was just a deluge. But then also, I had contacted, or after I had posted once, I think I looked at the website. Oh, I'm going to go on the website, and here was Skids, who's one of my good friends from high school. I had no idea he did this, and he was like right on the front page with him. Him and Escobar were dressed in like Top Gun flight suits for some reason.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They did yeah, Danger Zone Q.
Okay, right. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, so I immediately got on the phone. Hey, you do F3? Like I just posted today, and then he's like, hey, come down to Sanitarium tomorrow. So I did, and so it was kind of like looking stormy and rainy when I showed up, and he's like, "Oh, I just pulled in. I'm in the car." I was like, "Oh, I think I'm next to you." So I stepped out of the car, and then out of the car that I thought Skids was in steps Lucky Charms, who is my good friend and college roommate, who I also didn't know was in F3.
Nice.
So he's like, What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" And then
Yeah.
it was, it was really great for me because I already had these real deep connections with at least two guys plus Scoob, of course, uh,
Yeah.
that were already in F3. So yeah, it was yeah. Ever since that first week, I think I posted like 4 times or something, ending with gold and spike, I think. And yeah, I was hooked.
That's awesome. And as your fitness, as you're getting back to where you want to be from a fitness standpoint, you mentioned running, and I think something I feel like we're getting better at is just creating opportunities for, because I think running's fairly intimidating, right? If you haven't done it, you're not used to it. We all kind of know like, hey, running's a really good option, right? If I want to lose weight or get in better shape. But you don't want to just start running with like Farba, right? Who's he can't even, you wouldn't even see him, you'd get lost. So tell me about that. How did you get started in some of the pre-run stuff, or what was that like for you? Were you anxious, or who helped you through that?
I know exactly who helped me. So this was I'd never done a pre-run prior to about a year in, and I came back from a trip that I always take up to Yankton, South Dakota. My buddy has a cabin, so our high school friends we all go up there and meet at least one time a year because we all live in different cities. And so I'd gotten done with that, which is kind of our big, hey, we're going to party and have fun. And I was like, okay, I got to snap back into F3. And then right when I got back, Tugboat texted me and like, hey, I'm pre-running Coliseum tomorrow. Do you want to come? I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like I've never pre-run before, but I trust in the Tugboat. So yeah, so Tugboat and I ran, I think for about a month. Just I mean, mostly him and I. Sometimes other people would join.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, he kind of got me into it, and then yeah, I kind of have been trying to drum up support for the Clydesdale group and for getting people connected like that, because otherwise you had to kind of do it on your own. You had to pick out someone. Hey, are you going to this site tomorrow? Oh no, I'm
Yeah.
not going there. Okay, well, I was planning to go there, but I was maybe going to run. I don't know. Maybe I just won't run.
Right. Yeah.
So I try to
Well,
connect people as much as possible, because it's always nice. Not that someone wouldn't run with you. Someone always runs with you,
right.
but as a slower guy, it's nice to have other guys there that are supportive, and you're not slowing someone down from a workout that they were kind of expecting to get.
Sure. Well, and what I've seen too, I think like Tea Party's done this at Armory, right? With the tank trot is like start a little bit earlier to still get the 5K or what, like I think it's just cool to see guys, making those connections and having the courage to say, hey, I want to do this, but I need, I need a buddy. Yeah, that's awesome. I love this story about you getting out of the car and thinking it was skids, but it actually being Lucky Charms. And it sounds like, as you think about second F fellowship stuff, that it sounds like you already had some friends, right? You've got your brother-in-law who EH'd you, so he's can't really leave you, right? He's not going anywhere. But then you've got like college roommates and people you grew up with. I mean, tell me about the second F journey. Was it just this like rekindling old relationships, or was Tugboat a new friend, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, so tugboat, and I mean, everybody else in F3 except for Echo. I went to college with Echo
Oh,
too.
okay.
We were in choir together, so we traveled the world together. But besides those guys, I think those are the only people I knew in previous life. But
Okay.
yeah, for the second F, as you know, I mean, if you've ever been at a workout with me, I'm extremely social.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
pandemic really hit me hard because I was kind of emerging at the time. So let's see, how old are my kids? 2020. So one had just turned 4 and the other one was 6. And so you're just getting to that. I mean, maybe not. Other people are better at this, but with our family, we were, we didn't get to do a lot of babysitters and stuff. And so we were just getting to the point where the kids were easier to watch with one person, and
Yeah.
you be, kind of reemerge from your shell of
Yeah.
having small children,
Yeah.
and like, hey, I can go out and I can stay out later and I can, or whatever, just hang out with my friends more. Well, then the pandemic happened. So then it was immediately shut down again. And we saw, some of Scoob and their families, but we always did a lot of outside stuff. And, it stunted the growth of my social life. And so, and also we had before the pandemic, a good group of kind of neighborhood friends that all sort of hung out. And
Mhm.
I kept that going with a few guys during the pandemic, but, that got kind of put on hold. And so anyway, I didn't know it at the time. This is how I hear from a lot of people, like, oh, I didn't know I needed F3, and then I, started F3. But it was the same way with me, but it was more like with the fellowship part of it. Like, I
Mhm.
live in the West Side School District. Besides those families in my neighborhood, I was not connected to the West Side community very much.
Yeah.
And then here I show up in F3, and I've got all these wonderful people that I talk to all the time who have, like, I talk to Tin Cup all the time, and he's exactly 10 years older than me. And his kids are the exact same age younger than him as mine are. So in 10
Oh
years,
yeah.
I'll be in exactly his place. And his kids went to school right down the road. So it's nice when I could be like, hey, what did you do? Or what
Yeah.
your kids do this? Was that fun? Was that helpful? And he's like, he can always give me really good information. So yeah, like being able to be in the community with the F3 guys has helped me really connect with like our school, my area of town community,
Yeah.
where I didn't have any of that before. And then, yeah, it's really helped me sort of emerge from the pandemic as far as like being able to see people, just see people on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I think my first COT when I had my VQ was about how to build relationships, and it's called the 2 ingredients, and it was frequent unplanned interactions and shared vulnerability were the 2 things. I read this. These aren't my ideas. I read it
Yeah.
somewhere. I read it. I read it in an NPR article, which then Wentworth came later and was like, oh, I don't let anybody turn on NPR in my car, blah blah blah. I'm like, hey, that's all right.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
still cool. So anyway, it really provided that, which was the part that I was missing, which was the frequent unplanned interactions part.
Yeah.
Like I'm fine being vulnerable with whoever crosses my path,
Hmm.
but like when you have kids and everything has to be so scheduled that it's like, well, when's the next time I'm actually going to have one of my friends come over to my house? Like weeks maybe from now. Who knows when it's going
Right.
to happen?
Right.
Now with F3, it's great because I can either line up to someone to go meet tomorrow to go work out, or even if I don't, I guarantee I'm going to see somebody there that I know and like and can talk to, and that's really, really important to me.
Yeah. That's interesting. I haven't heard that, but it makes total sense. The unplanned interactions, right? Because it's sort of like then you're not in control of like what's going on in the other person's life at whatever time, right? So you can support them or celebrate with them or edify them, whatever is going on. That's really cool. I can see how that works. I'm curious. So when we had Lansbury on for his interview, we had some really interesting conversation just about what is it like to be kind of the funny guy or and even like maybe not the sports guy or like the sports guy turned musical guy, or how have you seen some of those skills or experiences from your past kind of help you build relationships with guys today? Has that been
Yeah,
impactful?
it's really funny because Lansbury. I'll never I'll never forget when I realized that I was worried when I showed up at F3 because I was worried that it would be a bunch of guys who you know, still participated in, intramural sports and were very competitive and were very, like how many reps can we do? This is a super bro-y culture, which is fine with me. I'm totally
Mhm.
fine with that.
Yeah.
But it just wouldn't really necessarily be for me. Maybe I could work my way into it somehow.
Yeah.
But I immediately realized after I think I went to it was the Coop or yeah, it must have been the Coop. It was before mess hall started, and we were all sitting, around in our circle there. And Lansbury was there. I didn't know him, and like I said, this is probably my first 2 weeks, and a helicopter, like they were doing this, they're doing the COT. Sorry, it's so funny to me. They were doing the COT, and the helicopter from Children's was like circling to make a landing on the building, very close to there. So it came toward us extremely slowly and eventually drowned out whoever was trying to do their COT, but very, very slowly. So like he was talking louder, louder, and then eventually it was like right over us and nobody could hear. And Lansbury yells out the quote from Back to the Future. He said, I have to tell you about the future. And I literally thought to myself, this is a place where I feel like I could fit in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
For
funny.
that, you don't want to be a jackass right away and be like super talkative and making jokes all the time,
Yeah.
especially if you don't know who the people very well. But I thought like it, and then so then I made it a mission of mine to find out who that was that said that. I'm like, so I kept asking guys, like I think I asked Vandalay, was that you that made that Back to the Future joke at the Coop?
Yeah.
No. I'm like, so anyway, I eventually figured out who it was,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, as far as I think one of the important things in F3, and you've probably known if you've been to one of my sometimes zany workouts, is that I love how people can show their creativity in different ways by when they cue. Some guys are really into building the perfect playlist that they really love and playing it or whatever. And other guys are really like, hey, I'm going to make this funny, or I'm going to make this a theme workout that, has some sort of entertainment value. And then you have other guys who are like, oh, I'm not a creative person, but then you do a workout with them like that was super creative. Like I've never done anything like that before,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Vandalay's thing this morning was terrible, but it was kind of creative. I kind of liked how he did that.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I always say that it really like it gives everybody a chance to be creative in a certain way. I mean, as much as you want or as little as you want, and that's something that, like I said, as a former music teacher and someone who's been into the arts my whole life, that's always been very important to me, and it's nice that I get a channel to do that a little bit here in F3. I try not to make it too zany, so people will still come to my cues,
Yeah.
but it's fun to watch other people do that too. So
Yeah. Well, and it comes out right in your COTs too. I think a lot of your COTs, I feel like you've done, like poems. I haven't heard you sing though. I would be interested in that if you would, sing.
you should have come to the Pirates of Penzance at Chanticleer Theater.
Oh, I should have. That was, yeah, you were in that, weren't you?
So
I did go to Lansbury's performance, but I apologize. I'll go to your next one. We gotta get it promoted more often.
I think Lansbury. So I've told this story to everybody, but so Lansbury started that, practicing for that, and he was like, "Oh, my daughter's doing it." And his daughter is the same age as my daughter, my older kid, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. Like, there's a guy who's got kids that are sort of my age, and who's just like, hey, I have a performing background, I'm gonna try to involve my kid in this. And so that was actually what inspired me at the time to try out for this. This was probably the first kind of artsy thing I've done since before. So when I quit teaching, I went back and got my master's in just an MBA.
No.
And when I did that, I said, "Hey, I was in a community choir and I was in some other stuff." And I said, guys, I'm going to step back while I do my master's degree. And then I never re-engaged. It was like I had kids right after that, and there was just no time. And
Mhm.
so the first time I've stepped back into that was just this spring, because Lansbury told me he was doing it, and then my wife sent me. It was the show was Pirates of Penzance, and I had done that in high school in my senior year, and I loved it. I just loved the show. And so my wife kind of jokingly sent me like, "Hey, it's open auditions for this. You should try out." And I'm like, "Hey, maybe I should try out." My friend in F3 just tried out for something and got in, and he had told me
Uh,
very, very recently. And so, that's one of the things that I really love about F3 is like you see, and I think I've done a couple COTs on this, where you see other people doing, like, surrounding yourself with people who are doing different things and who are being leaders in different areas
yeah.
and maybe stepping outside of their comfort zones. You see them doing it, and like, not that you thought you couldn't do it before, but you just never maybe even thought to do it. Like, oh, maybe I should try out to be in community theater.
No.
And then, to be to to have people like Lansbury to talk to. And then I kind of ambushed Othello too. I'm like, "Hey, Othello, I need to know about the theater scene. Like, I have no clue what I'm doing here." You know,
Yeah.
I was like, "Hey, could you talk for a little bit?" So he called me at, like, I don't know, 9:30 or something. I talked his ear off for like an hour, asking him all these questions, like, what song should I sing for the tryout? How should, like, what are we going to do? What exactly is the protocol? And I'm sure he was like, there's a lot of questions, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
he was super helpful, and having people to kind of like not only inspire you to do things like that, but to help you along the way. It's funny because I had both those guys were instrumental, and it ended up being a super rewarding experience. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, so you auditioned and you got it, and it sounds like was really impactful, right? Almost like proving to yourself, like, hey, I can do this, right?
right. And then
Yeah.
the F3 guys came to watch too, so that was
Yeah.
nice to have people there. They all came on one night, so it was great.
That was awesome. Hey, I think just as we're just listening to your story and your journey, it's just really cool to hear all of these things like connecting. And I'm curious, on the third F side, where what's been your faith journey? Because to me, like like just outsider looking in, right? I can sort of see, right? There's clearly like this higher power, orchestrating some of these things, but I don't know, what's your sort of belief system or background or.
Yeah. So my faith journey has been, I mean, as far as like personal faith, I grew up in a Lutheran church in Wayne, and then in college I worked at I sang at a Lutheran church downtown, Koontz Memorial. If you've ever been down there, it's
Oh
beautiful.
yeah.
So I sang there because they paid me to do it, which was great. But I did that, and then started going to my wife's church in, when we met each other in probably 2007 ish. And at that time, the church, this is West Hills Church, which is um, like right by Cinema Center, 84th and Center.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and so we went there, and at that time when I joined, the church was absolutely thriving. There was lots of families, lots of kids. Of course, we didn't have kids yet, but they had a pastor who had been there for quite a while, who was just really, he was just one of those guys you kind of couldn't wait to hear what he was going to say in the sermon. Like, he was kind of edgy. He was
Mhm.
not like a feel goody type, like, hey, I'm going to say something that's predictable and is a warm fuzzy every week. Like, he was very, I just loved him.
Yeah.
And so he died of cancer actually in 2012.
Hmm.
And that was something that had come back after a long journey. And he passed away, and then our church has gone through this sort of succession of picking. They had an interim pastor, and then they picked a pastor that didn't work out, and then they went back, I think, back to an interim pastor. I can't remember, but again, this is also when I had really little kids, so it's all kind of fuzzy. Plus pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, and then now we're kind of in this. One of the guys in F3, his name is Snaps. If you've met him, he's come out to the West Side ones at some point. He's now the pastor, and he's kind of trying to restart everything. I mean,
Sure.
it sort of everything kind of crumbled down, and then he entered.
Yeah.
He has a big job in front of him, and he's doing a great job. But because of that whole, I mean, it was a long time. I mean, from 2012 to, I'm sure Andy got hired. I can't even tell you, maybe 2020. I mean, that's a long time to kind of be rudderless, from a faith standpoint. But yeah, I'm looking to re-engage with that more. And also, I mean, I talk about the community aspect of, or doing the third F um, portion of it. I mean, that is, with F3, it's been very helpful because my only outlet for, let's say, doing a Habitat for Humanity or something like that before was the church, and that's fine. But I always was kind of like, hey, I'd like to give back, or I'd like to help out, some way. And I only have one way to do that. And if you're not super engaged with the church, a lot of times you don't follow up on those activities.
Yeah.
Well, F3 gave me a really great way to not only be aware of ways that I can engage the community, but actually another way to participate that's outside of just like, hey, this everything I do that's for other people or for disadvantaged people or whatever has to be through our church. I really, that's another real reason I'm very appreciative of F3, and
Yeah.
that's those things that I feel like I'm still sort of in the infancy as far as engaging with that with F3. Like, I'm not very good at like doing the blood drives or those things yet, but I think that's super important, and it's really, really valuable part of that, because it's, like I said, if it's not, I feel like a lot of people are in that space where you're not, the sort of fraternal clubs like Knights of Columbus, those sorts of things are sort of fading a little bit.
Yeah.
And I feel like F3 fills that void that a lot of guys are looking for, where it's like, hey, I want to engage with my community. I want to be helpful, be useful.
Mm.
I don't know how to do it without a group of people who are all trying to do it at the same time. So I'm really thankful for F3 for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That West Hills Church, that's over in Westgate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I growing up, so I grew up in Westgate, and my family used to go there a couple times, but yeah, it's hard, I think, with younger kids. I think I'm always like, I'm the guy that's like, and what age do the 2.0s need to be? And it's like, okay, 16. Well, I've got 9 years until my until I go with me to that.
Right.
And I think it's hard because if you're like, hey, honey, I'm gonna leave you and the kids to go volunteer for these people in need, she's kind of like, well, I'm in need, right? Like, I'm in need of.
Exactly.
So I think it's really challenging, but I do think I don't know. I guess I would be curious your thoughts on the like the concentrica and just how we prioritize our time, and maybe it's that there are different seasons and different times where we can go out, and I don't know, how have you managed that over the years with your kids?
Yeah, I've definitely, obviously my kids are getting older, so it has gotten easier.
Yeah.
F3 came along at a time where everything was getting easier. I'm not
Hmm.
dealing with little kid stuff anymore, so that helps. But I think it has helped a lot for me to be in F3 and have, I don't know, like just something going on in my life besides work and my home life, you
Yep,
know?
for
Like I think
sure.
everybody needs that. I think it's in our society right now, it's hard to find that sometimes because there are so many things you can involve your kids in that you can make your whole life about your family and not
Uh,
talk to your neighbors and not talk to many people besides like, hey, we're sitting next to each other at a kid's soccer game. Oh, hi, I'm so and so,
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it's that is super important. But it has really helped me to have that in my life and have this thing that obviously I'm putting some time into and thought into that my wife kind of recognizes and says, hey, this is important to you, so that when, let's say, an opportunity comes up to paint a house or to do something, it's much easier to have that conversation than just like out of the blue, like, hey, I think I'm going to go volunteer at
Yeah.
Heartland Hope, and she's like, wait, what? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
It's easy,
Yeah.
much easier to be like, hey, this is an F3 thing, and I think that's really helpful. And it's very something that a lot of people need. I definitely needed that before I joined.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely easy, right? Bring a old pair of shoes or coat or canned goods to the workout, right? If
Right.
maybe you can't make it out to a special event, but you can certainly help that way. Or just I just love it, never fails, right? I always hear about somebody else that's going through something way more difficult than anything I think I am struggling with. It just is like a good reminder always of like I've got a pretty easy life and I need to be thinking about other people a lot more than I am myself. So, I'm curious as you look back at it was your whole journey or just those years of kind of church being in a stagnant space, but do you any like challenges or struggles or things that you feel like you've gone through that you would share that maybe other guys could learn from or
Yeah, so that is one of the things that I love about F3 is that you meet, of course, everybody says this, I've heard this COT 100 times, but there's always someone there who's gone through that, or whether you're working out with him today when you share it or 2 weeks from now. One of the things that was very impactful for me in my life is my father passed away in 2016 of cancer, and so it was he was sort of the glue that held my family together. So it's just me,
hmm,
my mom, my sister, my dad, and he was everybody's best friend in the family. Obviously my mom, but he was my sister and I kind of grew apart a little bit after
hmm,
college. Not that we just didn't have much in common. We weren't like estranged or anything, but we just, we're both kind of live in the moment, don't think to call and have like a long conversation, those sorts of things. But my dad was really the person who, was constantly, he's like me with texting F3 guys, like constantly calling me, then calling my sister, then, obviously being with my mom. Um, and so when my dad died, it was a big, like the fabric fell apart a little
hmm,
bit. And we didn't really know how to navigate that. But it is very helpful because, in F3, you eventually meet guys once you talk to them for long enough, like, oh yeah, I'm going through that too, and it's not easy. That I've talked to specifically other people who are my age who have gone through that, and they're, having the same sort of struggles, and I appreciate that we can talk about it and then switch the subject and talk about fart sacking, and then go back and talk about the more serious things that we talk about. And that's been something that's really been helpful, and if not practically helpful all the time, at least just comforting for me to know that other people are going through it and have gone through it. Because having little kids, you see a lot of other people where the grandparents are there helping out and the grandpa's there and has really great relationship with their kids. And, when you're by yourself and you don't have other points of reference, you tend to fall into like you just are envious of that situation. Like, man,
Mhm.
my dad would have been the best grandpa to my kids,
Yeah.
but he died when they were, they don't even remember him. So
Yeah.
it's very, very helpful for me to know that that's not just me, going through things.
There's so many things that you would think like, I'm not gonna bring that up, or that's probably just a me thing, or
Right.
just my family. But like, chances are there's somebody that has gone through something very similar, if not the exact same. And I think it's just having the courage to share it, and then getting, like you said, either advice, or maybe it's just the me too from
Right.
whoever that person is. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
curious. I want to talk to you a little bit about leadership, and kind of get your thoughts on site Q
Mhm.
leadership at the Spike, the
Mhm.
Golden Spike. Talk to us about that experience, just kind of the being selected by Mother Goose, and then kind of how you found your successor and anything in between.
Yeah. So I don't know if other people do this, but as soon as I had talked to Doppler a lot at the beginning of my F3 journey for the, first year, really. So he was, he'd always kind of tell me what he was doing. I watched what he did at Top Rope a lot, like, oh, what does the psyche do? And so I, was interested. I'm like, hey, I'm very interested in that. I'm always the kind of person that just like raises their hand, like, hey, like I'm good. Do you want me to do this? So instead of like actually engaging the site, like having someone engage me, I literally texted, let's see, Vanilla Ice at Octagon, Mother Goose at Spike, and then I think Doppler too, because I used to go to Top Rope every single week, even though it's not super close to my house. But I think I texted them all either in a group text or singularly, and I'm like, hey, if you're looking for a site queue, like I'm available, which is
Nice.
kind of backwards as to how it normally happens. Um, but yeah,
What made you interested in that, or what was your sort of motivation, you think?
I really, I mean, I just am interested in, being around people. And it seemed, like I said, I watched Doppler do it, and Doppler is, the way he led the site was kind of how I aspired to do it, with
Mhm.
humor. And, he just kind of is really good when I started, let's say, running, or when I started F3, he was very good at like just being positive and encouraging. And I thought, like, that's something that I can do, is that I can be positive, I can encourage people, I can show up every week, maybe not always on time, but I can show up every week,
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, that's something that I'd like to do. Plus, I really wanted to just make sure I stayed engaged after around my 1 year. Um, and so yeah, that's how it came to be. I think Mother Goose kind of put his head together with Doppler to make sure they weren't choosing the same people at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, hey, that. So I was really, really, really honored to get that. And I had talked in my flag pass a couple weeks ago about how I had some connection to Burke High School. I did my student teaching there when I was in college, and so of course I love the site. But really, once I did it for a year and kind of got to know the people that come every week, I talked about stewardship a lot, and in my
Mm.
CT, and how that's, really, you just, in this life, you get to really just choose what you're a steward of, and try to make it those things that are the most important to you. Family. You should be a good steward of your family. You should be a good steward of the things that you care about, whether it's a church or, in this case, a site, which sounds kind of trivial, but it really grew on me, and it became one of the most important parts of F3, is that the group of guys you see every week, and I'm a very nostalgic person, of course.
Yeah.
If you haven't met me, but I talk about Wayne, Nebraska more than anybody you've ever heard, but that's because I'm a nostalgic guy. So the the year at Spike, of course, made me all nostalgic for Spike, and yeah, so I just loved it. I loved being a part of it, and doing it, and trying to like I said, just the opportunity to to bring positivity and encouragement into people's lives, especially new guys that would show up, and then you
Mhm.
keep in touch with them. The ones that I think of are Almost Famous is one. He posted first at Trident, but Jenny Bravo is another one. A guy that has a great story. If you haven't heard his story,
Yeah.
uh, and those are just guys that showed up one day, and I just kept in touch with them, and that's something I was really looking forward to because that's what someone had. That's what Doppler had done for me. Wentworth, Tin Cup, a lot of guys that helped me when I first started, were A, friendly to me, but B, kind of just got my number and we texted a little bit and lined up a few a few meetups every once in a while, and that's what really got me. And so I wanted to provide that for other people.
Yeah. That word stewardship too. I mean, I love that, and I try to use that a lot when I'm talking to new site queues, because you're sort of stewarding the new guy's relationship with like F3, right? Like if you're the first, sort of official leader that they meet or see, like you said, Doppler, right? Being positive, being encouraging,
Right.
really introducing them to what we're all about, and then I think you're also stewarding sort of some men in their leadership journey, right? Like you get a guy to VQ who's never led anything in his life before,
Sure.
so I really like that word, because I think that is the psyches are stewarding just all sorts of different relationships between other guys, and so it's just really cool to hear that experience from you. I am curious, some of the things so you did, I feel like you had a lot of maybe special events, and maybe I could be making this up, but the one I'm really remembering was the Super Bowl one, and then I think your COT was like a why I hate February, or it was
Oh
hilarious.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
just remember that. But
Oh,
anyway, tell me about that, and maybe like some advice for other site queues that are like on the fence about adding their own flavor to their site.
yeah. So I really, and at my site at the Flag Pass to Almost Famous, I kind of recounted my year at Spike, and some of those, just sort of zany ones stuck out. All the different, like I recounted all the different like weird things we did, like lifting sandbags, lifting hay bales and hoses at the Letterkenny workout, and doing, the week before we had done a thing where we threw tennis balls at each other to make each other do burpees. It's just like stuff like that. Like that's like that's just fun stuff. And
Yeah.
so I think the Combine Spike Mega Bowl is what we ended up calling it.
Oh yeah.
We ended up calling it that like the day before it happened, so we didn't really get the marketing out like we should have. But
Yeah. Next year.
right next year. So Kill Switch and I had, we'd been good acquaintances, friends since we started F3, but we were kind of sundered because he did Combine and I did Spike on Fridays. But then, I was like, hey, it's the middle of February. It's like, I think right after Christmas, I reached out and I was like, we need to like do something different in the middle of winter instead of
Yeah.
just like doing our same site every week, which of course that's sort of the point, is to do the same site every week. But um, I'm the kind of guy who likes to, when I was a kid, I rearranged the furniture in my bedroom constantly because I
Yeah.
just I liked everything to feel fresh.
Yeah.
That's how I am. And so I reached out and like I think even before I think I texted Kill Switch and was like, hey, we should do something like this, like a convergence. And then I think I reached out to the first FQs in the West region before I even got an okay from him. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, I think Kill Switch and I want to do this. So yeah, that was fun, and that was what I was going for a little bit. Of course, I don't want the site to be too zany all the time and doing weird stuff. You got to have that consistency too, but that was something that I ended up being fun, ended up being, the ones that really stuck out to me when I was a site queue, the workouts were the ones that were a little bit different, a little bit outside of the norm. And I think that it helps that it's a Friday site because people feel like they can do a little different stuff on Fridays, kind of like
Mhm.
rabbit hole, like we're going to do something a little different. And that's what I really liked about it. I thought that was, as easy as it is as a site queue to just show up and, do whatever workout your person has for you and leave. I think that would be what I would recommend for a site queue, is just trying to encourage people to do, like, hey, point out an area of the AO that people don't usually go to. Like, hey, you could use this if you want to. Like,
Yeah.
we don't usually go over here. Or, Doppler. I remember one workout, he just ran us all around top rope. Like, hey, there's this area, and now we're gonna run over, and there's this area, and then there's this area. Like, we don't always have to like work out on this shitty parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah. With the glass in it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so that was, those things, like kind of keep keeping it a little bit new every week. That was really helpful. And you go through a whole year posting at the same site every week, and you get to see just so much variety, and again, creativity from people that are there. That I think trying to foster that creativity when you're talking to people, or when you see people do a queue and you're like, hey, that person would be great to do at Spike, because they do things a little bit differently. Like, that's what I would encourage people to do.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. No, I love that. I think, it's so cool just to hear just this passion from you for, kind of being creative, and then like hearing you get that back, right? Or some of that back in your own life, and then fostering that in these other guys, like through your leadership. I just think it's really cool. I'm curious, one of the questions we've been asking people is comes from like wait time during the 5-year anniversary week, but this idea of what's something that before you started F3 you thought was important, and something now that you think is more important. Anything kind of hit that list for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure about something I thought before was important, but I do know that I'm not sure how anything might relate to this now, but I do know that now I really feel like I have since I started F3, I've kind of gotten, like you just said, back to doing some of the things that I really enjoyed doing when I was younger. I really enjoyed being active, being in community with other people, like I said, in high school, college, seeing people every day, having brief conversations. And then also just being able to be creative, doing creative ventures of one sort or another.
So,
And then also leading. I still do in my job, but there's not a lot of leadership that I do outside of my job. And so that has always been something I've done in my life. I was an RA when I was in college. I did a lot of stuff like that, and I really enjoyed it. So I think that the thing that I really enjoy now is being able to do those things, and I feel like I'm getting I sort of strayed away from my core self, and now
yeah.
I'm getting back to that through all these different ways. It's not just one way. Like,
Yeah.
it's not musical. It's not just being creative at a workout, or having texting Tin Cup 18 times a day and bothering him.
Yeah.
But it's all those things combined that kind of make me realize, like, I didn't know this was missing before, but this is I am now a more mature version of when I was younger, and I was probably I was at my most effective self.
Sure.
Besides at work,
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
I took a while there being effective at work.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
kind of lost the other stuff along the way. So
It's interesting how much easier it is to master that at work. Like there's a blueprint for work, and so many of these other things there's not. So it almost just takes interaction with other people that have lived, and then sort of this realization that, oh, it's actually not a blueprint. Life would be boring if we were all following the same blueprint,
right.
and then you get to apply who you are to the life that you're living. So I love that. Curious, I do want to get from you your thoughts on a name for this episode. If you got the chance to name your own Glue episode, what would you call it?
This is very important to me. I should have thought of this beforehand. As you can see by my Twitter posts, they're always, at least by me, well thought out, and they're at least entertaining to myself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. Well, maybe I'll just go with the title of my original VK, or my original COT, which is the two ingredients for building relationships. I think I've talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah. Two
Um,
ingredients. All right. I
very
like that.
So again, two ingredients are frequent and unplanned interactions and shared vulnerability. Two things that you get in F3 all the time. And like I said, it's not. It's funny because that when I first started F3, I watched that video, that animated video on the F3 website about
Yeah.
like so and so used to have all this time to hang out with his friends in college, and it was a little hokey. When I saw it, I was like, but now that you've done it, you're like, oh yeah, right. I didn't get any frequent unplanned interactions when I had the little kids and then the pandemic,
Yeah.
and shared vulnerability is something that you can sometimes achieve. Maybe you're on a long conversation with a friend, or something, but it becomes few and far between as you get into little kid, and adult life. And yeah, I
Yeah.
really appreciate that F3 gives me that.
That's awesome, man. Anything else you feel like that we maybe didn't cover that you would want to share?
We probably didn't talk about Wayne enough, but
Chicken days.
we could we could do a different podcast if you'd like to come back. I could talk all
Yeah.
about that.
Just one about Wayne. Okay.
No, I just I'm very appreciative of the people in F3 that I've met. Like I said, I touched a little bit on it before, but then I seem to gravitate toward the guys that are like 10 years older than me or 5 years older than me. And in like Canadian Bacon's case, 20 years older than me. But
Yeah, he's old, isn't he?
so old.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But those guys, and like having that in F3 has been super super helpful for me because I've always looked up. I have an easy time being a mentee, I guess. Like
Sure.
kind of falling into that. Like, hey, I really want to hear what you have to think about this scenario or this situation or this news story or whatever. And I'm really thankful that F3's and fostered those relationships because otherwise, when do you ever get together with the guys in your neighborhood whose kids are in high school when your kids are in pre-K?
Sure.
Like never.
Never. Yeah. Yeah. Right. As you're thinking about just current state where you're at in life right now, where do you need prayers or encouragement as we see you out there in the gloom? Anything in that space we should be encouraging you on?
Yeah, so probably the place I need it the most, like my family life has stabilized quite a bit. All the things kind of I've talked about, but it's probably my work life.
Okay.
I have shared this at I think a couple COTs, but so I left my sort of my job that was my passion to do a job that paid more money and was, not necessarily something I was. So I'm sorry, I didn't share this, but I work at a workers' comp insurance carrier, and that was my first job post teaching, and I am now at a different company, but doing the same thing, and it's getting to the point, or it will get to the point at some point where my relationship with my company is one thing, or what I'm doing at my company is not as fulfilling as it needs to be, probably.
Yep.
At one point, I worked with a lot of people. Now I don't work with as many people. My job changed pretty drastically last year at this time, so I'm feeling a little bit rudderless at my current job, but also at my current like profession.
Yeah.
It's not something I was passionate about to begin with. It's just the first job that would pay for my MBA. I went and did that, and then I worked my way into a, sort of a niche role in this company, and I can do it, and it's fine. But at some point, and I think, whatever you want to call it, midlife crisis or whatever, you get to the point where you're like, what kind of difference am I making in the world, and is my current job able to provide me those opportunities? And right now, I would say the answer is no, and I'm okay with that because I'm sort of in this time where stability is more important than anything else. So it's fine. But coming in the next, let's say 5-10 years, I'm going to have to probably do something different, and that's probably where I need the most prayers, is like not only guidance as to what to do, but how to do it. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure there's guys out there that have gone through a similar journey. I mean, I hear people talk about it all the time. So
Yeah.
I'm interested in that, and that's probably what I need the prayers for the most.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, man, and I'll be praying for you on that. I often wonder, like, I feel that tension because the sort of the world promotes this idea of like your job is everything, and you have to chase your passion, and your job is your passion, and so there I feel that tension, but actually I'm doing exactly what God would want me to do by focusing on my family, doing the best work I can do at my job.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrestle with that a lot too. It's like, should my job be like something I really love, or is it okay to just not like your job sometimes or most days? Or I don't know, but I'll be praying for you on that, man. That's really good.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Hey, thank you so much for this. Just the time and just your story. I think you've got a lot of great insight for guys, and I like the two ingredients. That's one of the more. I was a more serious name than I was thinking.
It's profound.
I was thinking something with the sounds of a tuba, the sounds of leadership or something. But
Don't worry, I'll come up with about five funny headlines later, and I'll email them to you.
Okay, perfect. Well, you got a couple days till we post the episode. Well, let's do a little name-orama here to close us out. I'll start us off.
Right.
Hardy, 37, The Plague.
I'm Ken 40. Oh, sorry, I didn't do the thing. Kenneth Copperroot 40, Oompa.
Oompa. And is there a thing? We should have a thing.
Well, there's no thing. I'll have to hang out with Swiper more. He seems to be the person, the number one generator of post name things.
Yeah, I think we need to.
Everybody has a funny thing they do after their deal.
I think what we need to do is we need to be more public about your name being the sound of a tuba.
Okay, all right.
Well, and then I think it's Oompa, right? Is like you, and then you have to say it that way.
Yeah, I'll try to think of something.
Think about it. All right.
I will.
And this was good. Great seeing you, man. Have a good rest of your day.
Yep. Have a good weekend, man. See you
Later.